Kakadosh Boker Tov, Masechet Yevamot Daf Amud Aleph 11A1. We just finished by saying that there was a question on Rav Sheshat. So basically we said that it was a question against the explanation of Rav Sheshat. And now, right, what we're going to do is that we're going to come and try to answer it up. And the Gemara says like this: Ravashi savar la keresh Akish umetaretz la Rabbi Shimon. Ravashi holds like keresh Akish, and therefore he answers it up like Rabbi Shimon, that it was talking about Eshet Achiv Shlo Velomo. And Ravina holds like Rabbi Yochanan, and he's going to answer like Rabbanan. Now the Gemara is going to explain, because until now, what does that mean? So let's explain. Ravashi savar la keresh Akish. Ravashi holds like keresh Akish umetaretz la Rabbi Shimon. In this case, hacholetz leyevimto. The Chazar, the Kicha. A person does chalitza to his sister-in-law, to the Yevamah, and then he comes and he gets married to her again, and then he dies without children. So tzricha chalitza min ha'achin, she needs chalitza from the brothers. Now, what does that mean exactly? What is the case? Man achin, who are the brothers? Achina yelodim, the brothers which are born right now after the chalitza and the kiddushin. It has to be done afterwards. So the case is, for example, Reuven dies without children. Shimon does chalitza to the wife. Afterwards, Shimon gets married to chalutzato. Now, even though it's an isur lav, remember, kiddushin are tofsin, just like chachamim. And therefore, after Shimon does kiddushin, right, there's another brother born, which is basically Levi. Now, Levi was not in the world with Reuven. He was born after Reuven already did the chalitza and got married, right? The wife of Reuven was done the chalitza and got married to Shimon. So therefore, if Shimon dies without children, his wife needs chalitza from Levi. Okay? Now, who does this go like? Keman, who does this go like? Obviously, it goes like Rabbi Shimon, because Rabbi Shimon holds Ibem Ulvasof Nolad. There's no Isur of Eshet Achiv Shelo Velomo, which means that according to Shitat, Rabbi Shimon, right, there's no Isur of Eshet Ach, only by the Ach which was born after, right? Sorry, there's no Isur of Eshet Ach to do with the boy that was born after the Chalitza and the Kiddushin. And therefore, this is according to Shitat Rabbi Shimon. So, Amad Echad Mina Yilodim Vekicha. So therefore, if one of the Yilodim gets up, right, which means that Noladim, sorry, one of the ones that was born afterwards gets up, and then he gets married to this woman now, En la alav klum. There's nothing there. What does that mean? En la alav klum. It says over here, right? It's Kiman is like Resh Lakish, that he holds that the chalutza is a surah to the other brothers with an isur of karet, right? Let's explain like this. Ravashi, right? I'm going to have to read the footnotes just so we should understand. Ravashi comes and he explains that the achin, which are mentioned in the seif of the Braita, are not the achin that was mentioned in the reisha of the Braita. Okay? The achin of the reisha are brothers that are born after the kiddushin of the chalitza. Okay? And therefore there's no zikat tibum, right, from the first brother. Now the achin of the seifa are born when the first brother was still alive. And then after the brother died, she came in front of Ibum. And when the brother did chalitza, and then again he went and he got married to her, there's Isur Eshetach. So therefore, that's what he's saying, El Alav Klum, there's nothing there, because once there's an Isur of Eshetach, right, it doesn't go anymore. Okay? So now this is going good in accordance to, again, Ravashi is holding like Resh Lakish and like Shitat Rabbi Shimon. Okay? Now we have Ravina. Ravina holds, right, like Rabbi Yochanan. Umetaretz la libad Rabbanan. What's the case? Hacholetz livimto v'chazar v'kitcha. Same case. A person that comes and he does chalitza to the Yevamah, and then again he gets married to her. Tzricha chalitza min ha'achin. You need chalitza from the brothers. Manachin huzachin achim anoladim. Right, the brothers, right, which were born before. Okay? Before the first brother died. Now the writer comes and it says Kiman. It's like Rabbi Yochanan. Because Rabbi Yochanan holds that also the other brothers, right, are only a sur with a lav, not with karet. So if one of them came and then he got married to her, Bekicha en la alav klum. Right? There's nothing there. What does that mean? En la alav klum. Keman, like Rabbanan. Remember that Rabbanan argue on Rabbi Shimon, and they hold that Isur of Eshet Achiv Sheloya Balomo was also noheg in a case of Ibem Ulvasof Nolad. And therefore, the Braita is telling us that the Kiddushim of the brother, Sheloya Balomo, of the first brother, are not tofsim in the Chalutza. It does not grab on. Why? Because you're not allowed to. So that was the Shita of Rabbanan, not like Rabbi Shimon, that you're not allowed to do the Kiddushin, right, to this woman because the brother was not alive at the time. Okay? So according to this, it comes out that the safe of the Braita, that the Kiddushim of the other brothers are not tofsim in the Chalutza. We're talking about achim that were not be'olamo shel acharishon. Okay? So therefore, since they are asur to do chalitza, isur karet, so therefore the Kiddushim are not tofsim. And if the Kiddushim are not tofsim, there's no marriage there. There's nothing there. Okay? Fine. Now we come back and we're going to speak about this halacha about yibum and then the tzara. Right? Right? So let's speak. And it goes like this. Itma, it was stated. Habal yevama. If somebody has, right, relations with the yevama, which means you have, let's say 3-4 brothers, doesn't matter what happens, one of them dies. The second one, Shimon, comes and he has relations with the yevama. So what happens? Right? That's it. He did yibum. Perfect. Now what happens is that once he does yibum to one of the wives, the other wife is now what? Permitted to the shuk. Right? She's permitted to go to the shuk, permitted to get married to whoever she wants. One of the brothers come and they now have relations with a tzara, with the co-wife of the original brother. So pligi bar Rav Acha Ravina, there's machlok between Rav Acha Ravina. Chadamar, one of them says bekaret. One of them says that the second brother that has relations with the tzara was an isur karet. Why? Eshetach. Remember, the eshetach still stayed there. The chadamar b'aseh. And one of them says it's only a positive commandment. Now let's explain. Man de amar bekaret, according to the man de amar that says karet, kireshakish is like kireshakish. Remember, what does the shakish say? The shakish says that only the brother that did the chalitza, if he's going to get married to her after doing the chalitza, it's only a lav. But everybody else still stays in the same status quo as what? As eshetach. And therefore it's always karet. So the same thing. The second that one brother did the yibum, every other brother that now has relations with her or with a co-wife or whatever it is, it's eshetach. So they get karet. So therefore that's what we just mentioned now. But according to the Mandamar that says that it's only going to be an aseh, right, a positive commandment, that's Rabbi Yochanan. Because remember that Rabbi Yochanan says that since it was on behalf of all the brothers, the one that did the chalitza, and the woman that received it was on behalf of all the co-wives, so therefore it's all a lav. It's all a negative commandment of lo yivneh. And therefore, if they did do the yibum, it's only a negative commandment. It's not karet. Okay? So Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, right? Nekuda. Okay? There, until there we are clear, yeah? So now the Mishnah just mentioned that there was going to be 15 arayot, right? There were 15 women that they exempt sarotehem from chalitza nibum. Now we're going to go to another halacha to do this. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, says Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, sarat sota asura. The tzara of a sota is asura to do yibum, right? And therefore, right, and she's also patur even from chalitza. Now says the Gemara, why? It says tum'ah ketivba karayot, because it says by the sota tum'ah, right? V'nitme'ah, it says tum'ah. There was an impurification, and therefore just like arayot. So therefore, just like arayot, they exempt sarotehen from chalitza nibum. So to the sota exempt sarotehem from chalitza. Why? Because it's considered as if that he's not married to the sota. Remember, the sota is a woman that she secluded herself, and therefore, technically speaking, she would be prohibited to the husband until when? Until she drinks, and then we find out whether she's pure or not pure. So this sota, since it's not considered anymore that she's married to the husband, ki'ilu, because nitme'ah, so therefore she cannot exempt the tzara, the co-wife. So therefore the co-wife, right? So he says, so what happens is that just like she's an arayot, right, to the husband now, so too, and therefore just like arayot exempt the co-wives, so too this sota also is going to come and exempt the co-wife. So says the Gemara, Mati Rav Chasta, we're going to ask a question from the Mishnah later on in Perek Asiri, Peizanim Ubet. We're talking about a woman that the husband went to Medinat Hayam, right? So the husband goes to the diaspora, right? And then what happens is that one witness comes and testifies the husband died. And then she goes and she gets married. And then afterwards, the original husband comes. So when the original husband comes, the Mishnah teaches us that she's prohibited to get married, to stay married to both husbands. Why? Because the Chachamim mean a knas, right? So therefore, right, one of the halachot there is mentioned. What happens if the husband dies without children, without getting a get? So now the brother of this and the brother of this, meaning both brothers, meaning from both marriages, they do chalitza and not ibum. So she's not allowed to do marriage to any of them, and it's only chalitza. Okay? So now, says the Mishnah, Rabbi Shimon argues on this, and Rabbi Shimon says, Biata o chalitzata me'achiv shel harishon poteret tzarata. The chalitza or ibum of one of the brother of the first husband is poteret tzarata, is going to exempt her tzara. Now, this woman, even though she did it b'shogeg, because she went and she got married, not purposely the second time around, she thought that her husband was dead. But since the rabbis were lenient on her to accept one witness for testimony, so therefore they were stringent on her that if the husband does come back, now she becomes prohibited to both. So she took a risk, basically. That mitzad echad, she doesn't want to stay like an aguna for the rest of her life. But mitzad sheni, right, if the husband does come back, that's it. She's prohibited to the original husband and to the second husband as well. Okay? So now what happens though is, says Rabbi Shimon, that it's mutalia bemota, right? And even the Chachamim that argue, right, they say that it was only to do with the same woman, but not to do with the tzara. So Amar lecha, so the Gemara is going to say, Amar lecha Rav, Rav is going to tell you, Amina lecha ana, I'm going to tell you, sota deoraita, ve'ata marta li sota de rabbanan. He says, I don't understand you. What are you comparing a sota mi deoraita and a sota mi de rabbanan? Which means like this. A woman that has relations, right, extramarital relations, right, that means relations outside of her marriage, right, she's a sotah gemura min Torah. She is erva, because it says tuma. So therefore, right, I understand. But in this case that you're bringing down from the Mishnah later on, Peizan Ubet, that's not sotah min Torah. Min Torah, she was permitted to go back to her husband because she was permitted to get married through a bedin, right? So therefore, she's like a eshetish, she was violated. In a sense, she's a married woman that she was violated, that she's permitted to her husband if the husband is not a Kohen. So therefore, she's not prohibited from the Torah unless she willingly does it. So it says, so therefore, right, you cannot compare the two cases. Meaning, we were talking about mamash and erva, mina Torah. Not like this case that it's not an erva, it's only an erva midrabanan. So says the Gemara, utkari la my kari. So what was the havamina? When you asked the question, what did you think in your mind then? You're right. One is sotah midoraita, and one is sotah midrabanan. So answers the Gemara, Katsavar, we thought, called the takun rabanan ken doraita takun. Many times when the rabbis instituted something, they instituted it with such a strength that they instituted it as if it was doraita. And therefore they were asking that if it's going to be like Rav, right, the sotah gemura is going to prohibit tzarata, so therefore the chachamim are going to be prohibiting the tzara minitibem, and therefore they also need chalitza. Okay? Fine. Mati Ravashi. Ravashi now comes and he asks the following question. This is from Mishnah Masechet Sotah, right? And now it says as follows, right? Nichnesa imo leseter, v'sha'ata imo kidei tuma, asura lebeita ve'asura le'echol bitruma, ve'imet choletzet. So comes Ravashi and he asks the following question. Somebody that warns his wife, he does kinoi, and he tells her, do not have yichud, do not seclude yourself with a certain man. Now what happens is she does do it. She goes in to a secluded area. She waited there for the time that it takes to become tmeah, which means that remember that it's not just stam that they secluded themselves. They had to be there a certain amount of time where they could have done an avirah. So now she becomes prohibited for her husband, asura lebeita. She's prohibited to her house. She's the wife of a Kohen. She's not allowed to eat truma anymore. Now, if the husband dies, choletzet, she does ibum. Right? And she doesn't do So sorry, she does chalitza and she doesn't do yibum. Yud Aleph Amud Bet, right? 11b. So therefore, you see from here that the sota itself means chalitza, right? So what are you telling me? The reason why she's a surah to do yibum, right, is already brought down in the Gemara and Masechet Sota, Daf Yomi Bet, and everything. But nevertheless, the Mishnah is saying that the sota needs chalitza, not like what Rav just said. So Amalekha Rav is going to answer you. Amina lechaana amartali sota vadai amartali sota safek. I told you that this is sota vadai, which means for sure she had relations with her husband, and you're going to tell me that it's a sota safek, which means this woman, she didn't for sure have relations. So ever since she's for sure not a sota midoraita, so whoever told you now that it's obviously, right, it's going to be a different case. So ask the Gemara, umayshna sota vadai mishum dichtiba tumah. Why is sota vadai that it's written tumah, and therefore she's like an adva, so she stood up from chalitza. Sota safek nami tumah ktiba. It's also written by a sota safek tumah. Tetanya, but we learned to the right. Rabbi Yosef ben Kefar omer mishum Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Yosef ben Kefar says the name of Rabbi Elazar. Hamachzir grushato min hanisuin asura. Right? If somebody comes and he's machzir grushato min hanisuin, right? If right now she got married to somebody else and then dies, right? Or he gets divorced, asura, she's not allowed to get married to the first husband. She said this: a person, Reuven, is married to Frecha. Yeah? Frecha gets divorced from Reuven and she gets married to Shimon or to somebody else from the street, to Moshe. Yeah? Okay, fine. Now Moshe dies or Moshe gets divorced from Frecha. The first husband is not allowed to get married to her. Right? Why? Because it's machzir grushato min hanisuin, from the nisuin. He was fully married to her. However, though, what happens if it was only irusin, which means that she was only mitarsa le'adam acher? That means it was only an irusin to somebody else, and it was not really that there was a nisuin. That means she got divorced from the first husband, and she only got engaged to the second husband, but there was no marriage. Muteret, she's allowed to go back to the first husband. Why? Yishum shenemar, it says in a pasuk by machzir grushato, acharei asher hu tama'a, which means after she became impure. What do you mean impure? Which means that she had relations to the second husband. Because once she had relations to the second husband, that's it. Chachamim say, achad zo v'achad zo, whether we're talking about for the first husband or the second husband, asura, she is prohibited, okay, to go back to the first husband. So it doesn't matter whether it was niset or nitarsa, whether it's marriage or engagement. Remember, the engagement is the engagement of the Torah, kiddushin, right? Which is, with the ring. So he says, right, but whether prohibited. Elamani mekayim. So what do I mekayim with the pasuk acharei asher hu tama? Lerabot, to include sota shenistera, a sota, right, that becomes with ichud, and therefore it's teaching him that she's prohibited to the husband. So therefore, you see from the words of the Chachamim and the Braita that the word tum'ah is teaching you to do it to sota shenistera, which is safek sota, that it's like erva, and therefore you should exempt even a safek sota from yibum chalitza, just like a sota gemura. Says the Gemara, no, my nistera. What does it mean, right? Nistera. It said lerabot sota shenistera. It's coming to include a sota that she was nistera, nitiachda. What does it mean nistera? Niv'ala. She for sure had relations. So says the Gemara, so v'mai karila nistera. So why did it say that she was only secured? So lishna me'alya nakat. It didn't want to use such a negative connotation of relations. So it just said they secluded themselves. You understand? That means by coming and saying that they secluded themselves, you were already hinting that there was a relations involved. Okay? So says the Gemara, nivala, so tuma behed yaktiva. Right? V'nistera v'nitma. Right? I don't understand you. If it was 100% nivala, that for sure she had relations, so they were written in furash tum'ah. Right? Acharei asher hu tum'ah. So therefore, what are you coming and telling me now in a safek sota as a sur? This is a vadai sota. So answers the Gemara, no. It's coming to teach you that we're talking about in a sota, that for sure she had relations, that there's a lav, which means that there's a lav if he's going to come and he's going to live with her. Okay? That means there's a negative commandment. Okay? So that means he gets lashes even. Meaning the husband that comes on to his wife, right? He gets lashes because there's a negative commandment. So that's it. Okay? But Rabbi Yossi ben Kippar, according to Yossi ben Kippar, lav besota let lay, right? According to him, there's no lav by a sota. Va'afilu zanai nami, and even if she was zinta, it's the same halacha. Meaning, even if she comes and she has relations, it's the same halacha. My time on what's the reasoning? Because it says havaya v'yishut kniba. It's written havaya v'yishut, which means like this. What happens if Frecha got divorced from Reuven, right? And then what happened is that she only had relations with Moshe, but she didn't get married to Moshe. She's still allowed to go back to her original husband. Why? Because since it says havaya and yishut, it means there has to be a marriage. Only once there's a marriage, there's such halacha. The Ben Ish Chai explains this yisod, and he says beautifully, and he says that a woman, if you realize it always says, bat ploni le ploni. Why does it say always bat ploni le ploni? Just say plonit, Mrs. to Mr. Why do you say the daughter of Mr. bat ploni to Mr.? So the Ben Ish Chai explains that a woman, she's always shayechet either to her father, she's always belongs to her father, or to her husband. There's nothing else. So therefore, once she gets divorced from the husband, she's still either from the husband, because there's a mitzvah machzik b'shuto, or her father. However, the once she gets married to another man, he puts his name on that woman, and now she can never go back to the original husband. Because once there's a second name, so now it does not go back to the original husband. Okay, so because of that, there's like a begam, there's like a defect in that last name or in the name. Right? Where the last names only existed afterwards, but I'm saying in the name. Okay, so therefore here he's coming and he's saying that it's in the name. It comes of Yehuda and he asks from Rav Sheshat, right? That means imagine a person comes and he gets married to his divorced wife after she got married to somebody else. Umet, now this guy dies without children. Okay, sarata mahu. Now we already know that this woman, he was prohibited to get married to her. Okay, but what about her tzara? So says the Gemara, aliba de Rabbi Yosef ben Kefar lo tibay lecha. According to Rabbi Yosef ben Kefar, for sure there's no doubt. Kevan da Amar Rabbi Yosef ben Kefar, but since Rabbi Yosef ben Kefar says tum'ah is b'machziv rushato u'dichtiva, it's talking about machziv rushato. So tzarata kemota. So her tzara is like her, right? So therefore, the same thing. She stood up from everything. And if it's written b'mishum dichtiva toevahi, that it's considered an abomination, okay? He toeva, then banea toavim. So she's an abomination, not her children, okay? That means her daughter is not considered a psula to the Kohen. That's what it means, that the daughter is not an abomination. Her children are not an abomination. Hatzarata, but her tzara is considered a toeva. And therefore what happens is, for sure, according to the Seven Kifar, there's no din of yibum by tzarata. Okay, why? Because just like that means the tzara is like her, and just like by her, there's no yibum, because he got married to her b'yisur. So too by him, by the tzara, by the co-wife, it's the same halacha. So kiti ba'elecha, what is the question according to Rabbanan? Afal gav de'amar Rabbanan, even though the rabbi said tum'ah besota u'dichtiv, it's written tum'ah by sota, en mikra yotzeh midei pshuto, the pasuk does not go out of its simple explanation, and therefore it's considered an riva, and sarata is asura b'yibum. Or dimar, maybe kevan yakar, maybe since the lashon of tum'ah was uprooted and it was darush legabe sota, so it's completely taken out, and therefore it's not talking about machzik grushato anymore. And therefore the grusha that was taken is not considered an riva, and therefore tzarata is permitted to come and to do yibum. So therefore we're going to come and we're going to say, Ika de amre, aliba de rabanan lo tabay lecha. Other people say, no, according to the rabbis, there's no question. Why? Kevan di itakar, since it was uprooted, and therefore what? And therefore for sure they could do yibum. Why? Because I took out the pasuk, I took out the tum'ah from the machzik grushato, and right from the sota, I put it in machzik grushato. So he says, so kitibay, it's not by machzik grushato. So he says, kitibay lecha, one is a question only according to Yosef ben Kifar. So this ikadamne flipped. Before it was only a question according to Yosef ben Kifar, not a question according to Yosef ben Kifar, only a question according to Rabbanan. And now we're flipping. That according to Rabbanan, there's no question. It's only a question according to Yosef ben Kifar. According to Yosef ben Kifar, what's halacha? Even though Afa gav dam Rabbi Yosef ben Kifar tum'ah b'machzik grushato d'chtiv, it's written by machzik grushato, niet rachmana hi toeva ben tzarata toeva. It says that it's only she's a toeva, but not the tzara. Or dimar, maybe hi toeva ben benat tovi, maybe that she's a toeva, not the children. Hatzarata is a toeva, so we're not sure. So amalei tenitua, we already learned it. We learned it, the what? When it says in the Mishnah later on, hayta achak kshera ve'achak psula, אם היה חולץ לפסולה, ואם היה מייבם lekshera. which means you have two wives over here. Okay? Now, what happens is you have the biyar, the chalitza is going to exempt one of them. So therefore, if one of them is kosher, one of them is pasul, so you're going to do the chalitza to the pasul, and if you're going to do the yibum, you're going to do the yibum to the kasher, which means we're going to explain what does that mean. Okay? B'ezrat Hashem. So we were mentioning as follows. If you remember, they already learned it. Rav Sheshat comes and he tells Rav Yehuda from the Mishnah later on, it says, if one woman was kshera and one of them is psula, so therefore they do the chalitza to the psula and the yibum to the kshera. What does that mean? Right? What is my kshera, my psula? What is kshera, what is psula? Ilema, if you're going to tell me that kshera means kshera le'alma to all the people in the world, and psula means psula be'alma to other people in the world, right? So, since right, the psula is fitting for him himself, might have come in. What does it care? Elalav, but rather kshera is kshera lei to the yavam himself, and psula means pasul to the yavam himself. Umaynihu, what is the case? Machzid grushato. The Ketanya we learned from yabem laksha, which means from this Mishnah we learn that the tzarata of the grusha, right, that was taken back is mutar because he's allowed to do yibum, right, to this woman that he was just machzir grushato to the tzarata. So he says, lo le'olam really means kshera le'alma to the entire world, and psula means psula le'alma to the entire world. Ulkamartana, you said since for him it's fitting, that means he could take her back. What do I care then? So Mishum de Rav Yosef, it says of Yosef, Damar Rav Yosef, Kan Shan and Rebbe taught, Lo yishpoch adam me boro v'acharim tzechim lahem. A person should not pour out waters of a pit if other people needs the water of a pit. Which means if a person has to do chalitza, he shouldn't do chalitza to a woman that's kshera and to prohibit her to a kohen. But rather he should do chalitza to somebody that's already psula, and therefore the kshera one will stay kshera to the kohen. Which means like this: an almana is kosher to a kohen, regular kohen, not kohen gadol. Almana is kosher to a regular kohen. Grusha v'chalutza are prohibited to a regular kohen. So now this guy has a choice, right? The brother could either do chalitza to the woman which was machzir grushato, right? Which anyway she's already psula to a kohen, or he could do it to the tzarata, which she's kosher to a kohen because she's an almanah. So says the Gemara, if you're already doing chalitza, do the chalitza to the one which was the machzir grushato, because she's already disqualified to a kohen. So do the chalitza to her. So now she's a grusha plus chalutza because she's already disqualified anyway. What do I care? But if you're going to do the chalitza to the one which is the co-wife that she was always kosher to a kohen because she's a almanah, and you just messed her up. So that's what it means that the Rav Yosef says that if you have water in a pit, don't pour it out if other people need to drink, right? So to here, if other people, which is kohanim or anybody, could get married to her and she's still kosher to them, why are you now pouring in it? Get rid of the pasul one, because anyway, she was already pasul. She was already disqualified. You understand? Which makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of logic. Which one? Now the Gemara is going to bring down as follows. Tashema, we're going to learn in a writer. Hamachzir grushato mishani said, if a person comes and he gets married to his wife, that he divorced her, and then she got married to somebody else, and then again, he got married to her again. Machzir grushato mishani said, once she got married to somebody else. He was machzir grushato. Remember, machzir grushato is a mitzvah. Meaning, a person gets divorced, there's a mitzvah to take her back. However, though, the second she gets married to somebody else, it's a sur. So therefore, a person did that. He went and he was over the isur and he got married to her again. Right? He v'tzarata choletzet. She and her tzara, they do chalitza. He v'tzarata salgadaita, says the Gemara. Do you really think that she also and the tzara needs to do chalitza? For sure, you're not going to do chalitza only to one yivama. Meaning it's not both of them you have to do chalitza. Chalitza is only to one woman, not to both. Ela ema, but rather, says the Gemara, no. Or he, or tzarata. Or she, or her tzara has to do chalitza. So you see from here that even the tzara of the machzir grushato, right, is a surah b'yibum. She's not allowed to do yibum, right? She doesn't do yibum, they have to do chalitza. So therefore, this is a proof to what we just said before. So says the Gemara, the lav tarutze kemetar tzala. I thought that we answered this. Taritzachi, you have to answer like this. He choletzet, right, which means the grusha itself has to do chalitza. The tzarata, but tzarata, or choletzet or mitafevet. She could do either chalitza or yibum. Meaning the co-wife of this Machzir Grushato, she could be done anything to her, whether it's Chalitza or Yibum. For the Machzir Grushato, it's only going to be done Chalitza. Okay? So now the Gemara is going to say like this. Amar Rabbi Chia bar Abba, says Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Rabbi Yochanan Bayer, Rabbi Yochanan had a doubt. Hamachzir Grushato Mishani said, if a person comes and he's going to get married to his Grusha, once she gets married, Sarata Mahu, what's halacha regarding to the Tzara? So Amar le Rabbi Yami, he says, Rabbi Yami, is she permitted to do Yibum or not? So we just answer that she is permitted either Yibum or Chalitza, but this was the doubt of Rabbi Yochanan. So it says the Gemara, Amar le Rabbi Yami tells him that Tibayla Achi Gufa. What about the Grusha itself? Why didn't you ask on her, herself, is she permitted to do Yibum? So says the Gemara, no, he Gufa, for sure that's not a question. Ta'amiran Kavachomer, because we're going to say Kavachomer. Bamutarla, her husband that she was at the beginning permitted to, Asura, she becomes prohibited after she got married to somebody else. But Asula to the Yavam, lo kol sheken, shouldn't be a kol sheken that she should become prohibited. So that means for sure it's prohibited to do Yibum to this woman. But when there's a doubt, what about to do the tzara? Mialin kal v'chomer lemidchet tzara. Is it so strong the kal v'chomer that you could push off a tzara or low or not? Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak had a different version of the safek. Amar Rav Chia bar Abba says Rav Chia bar Abba by Rabbi Yochanan had the safek. Hamachzir grushato mishani said to the person is going to bring back the wife after she was divorced, right? Mahu, what's the halacha? Remember, she was divorced, got married to another man, and then again came back to the original husband. So what's the halacha? So is she allowed to do Yibum or not? Why are you having a doubt about her, she herself? What about the tzara? For sure the tzara is not a question. The kavachom is not as strong to push off the tzara. But what is the question for herself? Is the kavachomer strong enough to push off the mitzvah or not? Remember, the Ika De'ami is also, there's two different versions. So in the first version, right, we said that for sure, for she herself, it was gone. Why? Because of the kavachomer. The only doubt was by a tzara, because is the kavachomer strong enough to push off a tzara or not? In the second case, right, the tzara was pashut that it was permitted. Not like the other one that we had a doubt in the tzara, and it was for sure prohibited by the woman, by Machzir Grushato. Here, the tzara is for sure permitted. The question is Machzir Grushato, because do we say that the kavachomer could stand in front of a mitzvah Yibum or not? That's the doubt of the Gemara. So then we're going to answer it in Yudbet Amud Aleph.